center parties, in a more civilized way, if you want, integrated our problematic. You know how liberals or standard democratic conservatives like to say, they say, of course we condemn Le Pen. It's horrible, disgusting. No place in our civilized societies. But then comes a but. They say, but they are manipulating and addressing legitimate fears of the people, so in other words, we should do it in a more softer way, and so on and so on. So the first thing we should say is, I think, change the entire terrain. Like, the big enigma for me is, where did this myth come, which even some leftists like Negri buy, that the nation state is disappearing and so on? Isn't state effectively getting stronger and stronger? I think that in today's economy, where you have the hero of intellectual property, all the ecological concerns, and so on, international situation, I think literally state apparatuses are getting stronger and stronger, and so on. So, back to my line, this is the first problem with natural capitalism. I cannot even imagine how concretely to do it without a gigantic state. But more fundamentally, the problem with natural capitalism, for me, resides in the very form of commodity and market exchange. The problem for me with the basic notion of natural capitalism is that it reads like a friend from Iran, okay, maybe not an objective source, told me about the first sex and marriage guide recently published in Saudi Arabia. It's a very interesting book, he told me. While its form is that of a modern manual, it imitates these decadent Western manuals, its content is the traditional patriarchal advice. So in this form, as you know, easy, light, chat, how to treat marriage. You get then advices how to beat your wife without hurting her too much, and so on. With Hawking, it's the opposite, I claim that is the case. New ecological concerns are squeezed into the old capitalist form, so that instead of overcoming commodification, one extends it ad absurdum. So that you notice the basic operation. Basically, they try to save the ecological problem so that everything becomes a commodity. And Hawking at some point even says everything that nature did in the last, I don't know how he come to this number, 3.6 billion years, is this the date of Big Bang? I don't know. All that should be considered as a commodity. And we should try to formulate its price. So again, from the air we breathe to our human abilities, everything is a commodity. Now, incidentally, this is the same mistake, so that you will not say that I'm only making fun of this commodity capitalism. It's a mirror image of the same mistake made in the last stage by the communist countries. Like, I met at the conference a guy who is now one of the top computer specialists, but in the last 10 years, 15 years of the East Germany, communist Germany, he was one of their wunderkinds, allowed not to go to the West, but to read literature of the West, doing with digitalization. And he told me how they made a similar mistake. They totally misread the social consequences of what we call computerization, digital revolution. On the contrary, they thought that digital revolution is what will finally make communism workable. They considered that planning doesn't function, but they claim because social needs are so fluctuating and so on that central bureaucracy simply cannot do it. But they thought with modern mega computers, you see, their image was also, their notion was also it's kind of a primitive Orwellian of a couple of big mega computers in some state agency, that finally these computers will be strong enough to take into account all the fluctuations of the needs of different strata of populations, and finally communism will become workable. Again, what they did is that they simply didn't get it both. The irony, I've written a lot about this, is here beautiful, I think. Because, you know, we may doubt this Marxist dogma about, you know, the vulgar one, of how, you know, when forces of production get in contradiction with relations of production, then revolution. So, but it certainly did held this dogma for the last 20 years of communist countries. It's clear that what ruined them was what fashionably we described as a passage for traditional industrial to whatever we call it, post-industrial capitalism. That was their end. But something similar is doing hockey, I think. In the same way that the DDR communist bureaucrats forget, oh, mega computers, wonderful, finally communism will work. He thinks, oh, we universalize the notion of commodity so that everything is a commodity, not only a commodity, but a capital, which we should care for it so that it is regenerated properly, and the problem of ecology is saved. I think this is problematic. Why? Because while Hawking maintains the basic capitalist matrix, profit through expanded self-reproduction, proposing to save it from its and our self-destruction through its excessive universalism, proposing to save it precisely through its excessive universalization, the core of the problem remains, which resides in this very form, profit-seeking as the motive of economic reproduction. I claim that no matter how much we expand the notion of capital, the very form of capital presupposes a structural gap between reality, the use value of products and services, and the real of the financial circulation, reproduction which generates profit. Well, the first is subordinated to the second. In other words, insofar as we remain within capitalism, even if we expand the notion of capital to all reality, this reality will continue to function as an indifferent, ultimately expendable stuff whose goal is to serve profit making. So again, I'm claiming that this is kind of a mirror illusion of the East German communist bureaucrats. Where can we see the limit of this approach, if you allow me another, like I did already 5% of my work?
No, you can go on for another 15 minutes, really, if you want to. It's a choice.
15?
15, one fine. 20. Look, you can go on till 7:30, 19:30. Is that not enough?
I don't like this metaphysical linear notion.
You asked me earlier to keep a firm control over this event. I said I'd be your dominatrix for the evening.
Yeah. You should
control the event.
But you should take this in the same way when Stalin said, comrades, please criticize me and so on.
Or in other words, you have 20 minutes left.
You deserve not gulag, but re-education.
Since you constantly invite me to questions, you can answer your questions. Just for the sake of the audience, who is this we you keep appealing to? The royal we. You looked at the picture of the Queen, as you asked earlier, and there's a famous measure of the royal we.
No,
who is the royal we in your discourse that you keep?
No, I will give you a very clear answer here. That's okay. In order to answer you really properly, I will have to lose another half an hour going into theory and so on. But it doesn't yet.
The dose of the left.
Sorry?
It's the dose of the left.
It's the ghost which comes not from the past but the future of the left. This is how politics is done. You cannot say really, I'm making a very fine point. Do you know, please that also, do you know the paradox of the performative? How by saying something you create it. But if you notice a paradox, if you read it closely, how? And even John Searle, who is not the highest on my top of these guys, speech act theorists, notice nicely this paradox that the only way to do a performative is to put it in a fetishized way so that you do something not by saying that you are doing something, but by reporting it as already done. You close a session by saying this session is closed. And in the same way, I think it's exactly the same problem in a political movement.